Hi, everybody. Dr. Misty here. Thank you so much for joining in today on Wellness Wednesday. And today I am going to be talking about complex PTSD and what brain changes occur and how to develop a healthier brain as an adult. Usually, complex PTSD can develop from other situations as an adult, but typically it's due to a long being in an environment of prolonged traumatic experiences, typically either a war zone, a poverty situation, and more commonly abusive situations. So, for a developmental trauma survivor, more often, or an abuse survivor, more typically they will have a complex PTSD versus a PTSD. So, if this also resonates with you, please watch to the end, comment below, let me know what is helpful for you. I always love to know how I can help you guys further and give you, address your questions as much as possible. And I appreciate all of you who are joining in tonight because this is such a great, this is a great way to look at your brain and what it's done for you throughout your life. A lot of people have a stigma of shame that goes with PTSD or mental illness, things like that. So it's really important to know that if you are a developmental trauma survivor, your brain and body are really phenomenal at naturally decreasing the traumatic experiences for you. So you don't either remember or, pain sensations aren't as bad because your body actually makes structural and neurological adaptations to your environment. Okay. So when I'm talking about complex PTSD or anything abuse, I do just put out a trigger warning for videos like this just because of the sensitivity in nature of these types of things. So if you are a developmental trauma survivor, you come from an abusive home, there's a trigger warning to this, as I mentioned different types of things further. Okay. So complex PTSD, what does that really entail and what happens to your brain? Okay. So I just want to share a photo I found that was really cool from actually Harvard University in the Developing Child Center. Give me one second. Just make sure. Okay. I'm just going to share my screen here. All right. So our brains are so amazing. Um, we have all different types of neural pathways. We have different pathways and different. It's almost like your brain and spinal cord are almost like, think of like a racetrack. Okay. So in your spinal cord, you have all these types of areas attached to different parts of your body, whether it be your face and your nerves and your cranial nerves, whether it be your sensory from your hands and your feet, whether it be from your organs, things like that. We have so many things that are neurologically um, regulated through our spine and our brain. Okay. So what happens is um, a lot of our sensation is taken in through our extremities or through our cranial nerves. A lot of times sensations will actually go through more of the midbrain and the thalamus. Okay. Um, so what happens is our body, if we are developing in an area that's less emotionally safe or physically safe. Okay, so we have an amplification of threat or unsafety. Okay, what our body will do is it will hyperactivate specific parts and portions of our brains to give a stress response. Okay. Now, the amygdala is basically something that will be basically determine whether there's emotional threats and things like that. So typically the amygdala is an area that's very hyperactive in people with PTSD. This is the kind of feeling of like you're scanning for threat all the time. Okay. That is your body trying to keep you safe in an old environment. As an adult now, hopefully you are in a safe environment now. If you are not, I'm truly believe in you that you can get out of whatever environment that you are that is unsafe. Um, so just want to put that out there. Okay. But hopefully you're in a safe environment now as an adult. And so our body with PTSD, we have hyperactivation of the amygdala. Okay, so sensations that might have happened, whether it's, this is particularly worse. There's different types of abuses, emotional, there's physical, there's sexual, and there's neglect. And then there's so basically like if you have this is actually worse. And the with sexual abuse and physical abuse, the adaptations tend to be more severe in a different way. I'll talk about that in a little bit. um, because of the sensory load on your body versus the emotional, just the emotional load. Okay. It's going to react differently. So basically, this is going to be an area that is basically scanning for safety. Okay. So the hippocampus is also, the hippocampus actually, in ways, will start to um, decrease short-term memories. So it will actually work on decreasing your memory, especially with traumatic memory. Okay. It will also increase cortisol levels. So that will increase the HPA axis, which is the hypopituitary adrenal axis. Okay. So that's part of what I've talked about in some of my other videos where the adrenals get activated in cortisol. There's actually some research that shows in children um, that there is like some of the brain adaptations actually show lower cortisol levels eventually, even in children in abusive homes. That they're already starting with like exhaustion and things like that. So that's really important to understand, because especially as adults, some of the stuff that adults will then go on to experience as when they're fully developed, there's a multitude of chronic health issues. This is where a lot of fibromyalgia starts to take place. A lot of chronic fatigue and things like that. And there's so many things that underlie that. Okay. So this area, there's parts that hyperactivate because of the cortisol, but also shrinks so your body doesn't have to create some of those memories. Okay. It's also one of the reasons why if you are familiar with EMDR, rapid eye movement desensitization, it's a psychological um, basically memory processing technique that neurologically works to help reprogram the memory with bypassing the amygdala and not getting that PTSD response where you're actually reliving the moment. Okay. Um, but so moving forward here, prefrontal cortex. This is really, really, really important. Okay. So this area here and the cortex in general, but particularly the prefrontal cortex, is very inactivated. Okay, because here is overactivated and taking over. This area is basically underactivated. What does this area do? It helps regulate emotions. It helps with cognitive function. It helps with basically decision processing. It helps with basically maturity levels. Okay. So this is, if you've ever seen videos of, this is extreme cases, but of a person who, has been locked in a basement for however long, and, or whatever, you know what I mean? Like you see like extreme cases of abuse and neglect, and somebody, was like left in a closet for, 8 years and fed scraps or whatever, which is horrific. But like what happens is, and the person comes out, they have difficulty making eye contact, they're cognitively way behind. It's because so much of their brain is underdeveloped, so they're not able to understand certain things of like executive type or higher level thinking functions. Okay, one of the reasons why you know antidepressants can help in this area, um, is because they actually stimulate more of the prefrontal cortex. So as a person takes specific types of antidepressants, this area is, regulated with dopamine and serotonin a lot. And so if somebody is on medication, that's going to help with the activation of the prefrontal cortex. Okay. So this is just something important that I wanted to show to you guys, that how the brain changes. There's multiple other brain changes to somebody with PTSD or complex PTSD. Okay. So if this is like an aha and this is helping you, please click that like button. Tell me that this is helpful for you to understand. Now, the reason why I say your brain is amazing is because so much of your probably youth, if you had experienced this specifically, if you were growing up in a home with abuse and most of your abuse happened at home versus at a relative's house or things like that. Not that any of those instances, please know that all abuse is not okay. And if those instances happened, it's still just as painful of an experience. Okay. So for this video, I'm more talking about if you're in a regular environment of dysfunction. If those instances happened in like a one-time instances and you can get PTSD from that, but your feelings were validated and you had work done, you still had process. Or if you know a child that has some sort of abuse that happened, if they get work done to decrease, if they start feeling safety, and their emotions are validated and their memories are validated and they work through those things, they will not necessarily develop anything like this. Okay. So this is more of like, um, you know, a trauma survivor or abuse survivor that's like, there's a feeling of like no way out. They're trapped in their environment. Okay. So again, so some of the brain changes. Okay. Um, what also happens in victims of sexual abuse and physical abuse is the body has more significant decrease in some of the traumatic memory storage. Okay. So your body will actually have much less memory retrieval. This is why people have, as they get older, um, and they start having their own children, or they're in full development and they're in a new safe environment, memories can start to come forward. And one of the ways it does come forward initially is through body memories and emotional flashbacks. Okay. This was such a big thing for me. I remember like as stuff would start to come forward, as I started coming out of like realizing how much my brain would like shut down my body senses a lot, especially with my kids, because they're like jumping on you and like breastfeeding and stuff. My brain was like, ah! Like my brain was like, stop. That was so hard when I first started having kids, but it also really kind of triggered a lot of stuff to come up, about both, the sexual abuse and the physical abuse that I had endured. And one of the ways, again, it comes up is through body memories and emotions. One of the reasons for that is because of the process of dissociation, which is basically a mental ability. Your body has the mental ability to um, basically dissociate, whether it is an amnesia, so you get that short, like your memories, the poor memory retrieval, Okay. You can get kind of there's a couple different types of dissociation, and on a neurological level, I'm not sure which actual process in part of the brain the dissociation occurs. But basically, there's that aspect that is a safety mechanism. And there's also some of the some of the areas of the brain where you're not remembering things, and you can't, like, your prefrontal cortex is shut down during those moments. So it's going to be very hard to translate a memory for you, um, while in an extremely stressed state. Okay. So this is why when people who have traumatic memories, they'll start to remember memories as if they're watching from a movie screen. Like they're watching a movie screen, or that it's like themselves in front of them, or it won't be the full memory, but it'll be this like weird little flash of something, and then your body having like feeling like you're having a panic attack. You know what I mean? So like physiologically, that is your body, and neurologically how your brain process that. So it's kind of like it's pretty Jedi in some ways, that your body's like, we don't want to remember this crap. Like we want to stay as far away from this as possible. This is unsafe. We don't want to remember this, right? Um, so your body will do you that favor. The problem comes in when you're an adult, as when you are supposed to be, much more have the ability to be, more developmentally healthy, and have better decision making processes, things like that. It becomes challenging if you are somebody with complex PTSD. Your ability to make executive decisions, and organize and things like that can be very limited or disrupted, right? And that's because of the prefrontal cortex. Okay. That's another reason why we get depression too. Okay. Um, so here's what I want to say to everybody who is a trauma survivor who does resonate with what I'm saying right now. Um, right now, I understand that in the traditional realm of psychology and um, medicine, the general outcomes for just PTSD is, exercise, take medications, and talk therapy, right? Cognitive talk therapy. What I also want to recommend is that will help to keep the flames down, but to really heal your body, there has to be actual brain changes, okay? And medication can absolutely be a piece of that, okay? Um, and talk therapy can actually absolutely be a piece of that to work things out. But if you're somebody who's consistently still having a lot of these like flashbacks and things like that, either you're earlier on in the process, which is okay, but also, there are so much more things available to help with neurological retraining. Some people like to use biofeedback or neurofeedback, which helps basically stimulate the activity in the midbrain. And then there's also things that you can do. Hyperbaric chambers are really good. Actually, like pressurized oxygen is really amazing at stimulating um like the nerves in the prefrontal cortex, and stimulating stem cells, things like that. That's really, really, really an awesome, especially for fibromyalgia patients. Hyperbaric oxygen chambers can be awesome at helping a patient to really help getting more oxygen and blood flow to different parts of their brain. Other things that you can do, um, really things that are important and other things to remember, is that not all of your symptoms from complex PTSD are going to be directly from the PTSD itself. Sometimes we want to just like lump every symptom we have into like one category, right? So it's important to understand. This is why I do like a full body approach with patients, because we could have a complex PTSD trauma survivor who has severe mold toxicity and has a lot of neuroinflammation and is not getting outdoors enough. And so that's like, that's going to be a compounded issue where the person has to think about how their body in general is functioning and what their health is like, right? So just medication and talk therapy in general is going to help to reduce the flames, but activation of specific things with your body and your health is going to recreate a different life for you. And that's a really hard thing to do as somebody with complex PTSD. This is literally like, okay, I'm going to go up, I'm going to go do my laundry or things like that. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't have to be big things. One of the things I wanted to mention was how to get your prefrontal cortex more stimulated. Okay. And again, I'm going to mention exercise. Okay. So, exercise, even if it is just mobility. So, just moving your body, cleaning, things like cleaning count as exercise. Okay. If you have children, playing with your kids, doing piggyback rides, doing yoga together, taking your dog for a walk, those are all things that are considered exercise. Okay. So, especially if you have chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia, sometimes it can be very overwhelming to think about, like, oh God, like I gotta go to the gym, I gotta do this or that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, um, our ideas of what exercise has to be doesn't have to be like an intense workout. It could just be increments of small activity. Okay. And that will naturally increase your blood flow and neural stimulation to the prefrontal cortex. Okay. Doing things like stuff for like, things for people with dementia. Okay. Things like you would see, like doing crossword puzzles, things like that. Those are things that are like higher decision making types of things. These are really good for people with complex PTSD because of that prefrontal cortex is very decreased. So that is an excellent way. Getting in the educational and creative state of the brain is very, very, very powerful. Okay. So doing things like crosswords, also doing things that are with non-dominant hand. So non-dominant hands, like brushing your hair with your non-dominant hand. Brushing your teeth, opening the doorknob, trying to text or use your cell phone. That could be a disaster. I don't know. Maybe if you're not texting somebody, maybe if you're just trying to look up something on Google or something. um, things like that can be really powerful at stimulating that connection. Okay. So the more you're in your creative brain, the more peaceful and safe environment you are in, and the more decrease activation that you have with the amygdala and that emotional regulatory like safety scanning, the more you can train your brain on a regular daily process to go into the prefrontal cortex more. So our brains are highly what's called neuroplastic. Okay, we have a lot of neuroplasticity in our brain. We can learn things very easily. Obviously, when we're young, it's a lot easier to learn than it is as an adult, but it's still very possible. So for people who are if you're on medication and you haven't started with any other things, what I would recommend is considering doing some of the things I mentioned. There are also foods and supplementations that I would suggest to people to help with reducing neural excitation, as well as increasing their serotonin levels. So there's so many foods that you can add that have the amino acid precursors to serotonin, particularly tryptophan. So it's like turkey, things like turkey. Okay, potatoes actually. Um, there's other things that you can do to help to, allow your body to regulate more of those serotonin levels and dopamine for you. The other thing that you can do is work on gut health, which is a big production of our serotonin. Okay, so if you are having gut issues, that is one thing that I work on with people is like, okay, we got to get a lot of, a lot of it is just like kind of like peeling back the onion and retraining. There's not necessarily like a magic bullet to complex PTSD, but there's ways to like unravel um, and ways to implement things that can be really, really powerful and help you. Okay. And I can't stress enough how important it is for somebody with complex PTSD if you are trying to heal or get your body to feel better, and you have an abusive situation either at home or a relationship, like that is going to trigger that amygdala response a lot, and it's going to hinder some of the progress that you can make with the healing process. So please implement boundaries. Please educate yourself, and believe in yourself that you can start to feel better and start having your symptoms um, start to decrease a little bit. Okay. It just takes a little bit of a non-traditional look at things. Okay. So again, I'm Dr. Misty Kaziesko. Thank you so much for joining me on Wellness Wednesday. I am a functional medicine practitioner. I specialize in helping people with like health issues and related to chronic stress or developmental abuse. Particularly, these people suffer from fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, things along that nature, depression, anxiety, and PTSD. If this sounds like you are this resonates with you, and this sounds like something that you would like to look further into, or talk more one-to-one, I do virtual health coaching for patients. Please visit www.drmisty.com. You can look up my services there. If you're not sure if this is for you, but you really want help and you've kind of been around the gamut of the medical world, and that view of health is not, you're not getting the answers that you need, you can book a discovery call with me. It's free. It's for 15 minutes, and we just kind of dive into what's going on with you and if I'm the right person to help you. If I am, I'm happy to help, and we'll go into how I can help you further and how I work with patients. If not, I'll just tell you where would be the best reference for you to get yourself some help. Okay. Thank you so much again for watching. Please, again, leave a comment or like. If you haven't yet, please jump on YouTube. I put all my videos on YouTube. So go ahead and join me there. You don't have to scroll through my posts and stuff on Facebook. You can just jump right on YouTube and subscribe and hit the notifications, because I do a weekly video on wellness topics for trauma survivors. Thank you so much again, and have a great night.